What is up, guys? This is Mateo's 2020 Politics here, and today I have a very special video to make. This has been a big topic. So, Joe Biden has just announced, I think less than an hour ago, that Kamala Harris will be his running mate. So, his tweet reads, "I have the great honor to announce that I've picked at Kamala Harris, a fearless fighter for the little guy, although she's against free college, and one of the country's finest public servants as my running mate." Okay, so what are my views on this? What do I think about Kamala Harris? Mateo, what do you think? Well, I don't know. I think I am mildly disapprove because she's actually for Medicare for all. It's a common misconception that she's straight up like an elitist. She's like in the corporate bubble. She's in the golden ring. She's not in that circle fully. She is at least in favor of Medicare for all, but she does come across as one of those politicians who's just in favor of it because they know it's beneficial. It's like the new movement. Now she's against free college. I believe that she's against the Green New Deal. Every Democrat who ran in 2020 was in favor of the $15 minimum wage. They copy Bernie Sanders' rhetoric. So she's probably for it too. So I do think Joe Biden, picked the wrong VP though, because he's completely ignoring the obvious, which is to pick a progressive for VP. So Karen Bass, a representative from California, she was in favor of Medicare for all and the Green New Deal. She was a straight up progressive, very consistent. But, and I predicted this. I predicted he was just going to pick someone who was nearly identical to him, right? Because Kamala Harris, they can't get much different. She's a bit more progressive than him, but not by a long shot, right? But I'm not really surprised here, because knowing Joe Biden, he wasn't going to pick a progressive guys. He wasn't going to pick Elizabeth Warren or Karen Bass or Nina Turner, of course. This is the guy who stated a few months back, if Medicare for all were to pass all of Congress and go to my desk, I would veto it. He's also the guy who said he will never support Medicare for all, ever. Although the majority of Americans support it. It kind of makes him look like an idiot, but he's probably just too out of touch to even notice it. So he's rigid. He's rigid. He's kind of stubborn. He doesn't want to compromise with the left, although they make up the majority of the country. So he just goes with someone who's nearly identical to him, right? So right now, the way the mainstream media portrays the Overton window, which is the state of common beliefs, is Joe Biden being center-left, Bernie Sanders being far-left. Now, when you look at the rest of the world, Bernie Sanders would be center-left. Joe Biden would be on the right. He'd be either center-right or just plain right. And it's even that's even the way it is in U.S. politics, because when you look at the polls, abortion now has an approval rating over 60%. Medicare for all, 69%. Free college, 70%, right? So the Green New Deal, above 80%, $15 minimum wage, 67%. So when you look at these issues, they aren't radical. They're straight up liked by the American people. But there is a disconnect between your ordinary civilian and the corporate media and the corporate politicians, DC basically. So he's stuck in that bubble. I don't even think he knows that the majority of Americans support things like free college, those so-called left ideas, when in reality they're pretty mainstream. I should be calling myself a centrist. He's not a centrist. He's on the right. If I were to be kind to him, I would say he's center-right. So his whole strategy is to kind of go to the middle. He wants to kind of lean to the right to get the majority of supporters. Well, you can't go to the middle from the left when you already are on the right. He's already on the right, so all he's doing is getting more right support. He isn't center left. He's center right. So if he turns to the right, he's just not gaining anything. Those are just Trump supporters right there, with the exception of a few non-Trump supporters. And he doesn't realize that to his left are the majority of the American people. Up to 70%. I'd say at least 60%. And he's completely ignoring them. It's almost like he's asking them not to vote for him. But unlike with other corporate Democrats, I just think he genuinely doesn't know what he's doing. Like, he's just too out of touch to understand that the majority of Americans support these policies. So what does he do? He doesn't pick Elizabeth Warren, Karen Bass, Tulsi Gabbard as his VP. He could have even gone for Andrew Yang. He could have even gone for Andrew Yang or Ro Khanna, any progressive. But no, he had to pick someone who is closer to the corporate bubble than to the populist ring because it's more vast. Because when you look at all of his VP choices, the overwhelming majority of them were in favor of the Affordable Care Act. They're straight up corporate rights. That's their new species. So I don't know. What do you expect, right? Like, you've got to be kidding yourself if you really believe he's going to pick someone like Bernie Sanders to be his VP. It's never going to happen. Why? Because since the beginning, he said he would pick a woman as his VP. He pledged to only pick a woman as his VP. And look, I respect that. Clearly, he cares about women's rights. But I couldn't care less what your genitalia is. I just like your policies. I mean, sure, you could be female, but do your policies negatively impact females? You could be black, but how do your policies affect the black community? So someone like Kamala Harris, for example, she's African American, right? But she's against things like free college, which, if implemented, would help to take many people out of poverty. Which race is more affected by poverty? I don't have to answer that question. It's clearly African Americans. So it's, the whole identity politics game. I don't care about it. I couldn't give less of a shite about it. So it doesn't, because it doesn't impact the governing style. So sure, you could be a woman of color, but how does it affect the people, right? It doesn't matter what you were born with. So I already think Joe Biden was wrong to, from the beginning, pledge to only pick a female as his VP, especially an African American female, because it's clearly policy that matters. Nobody cares, except for those out of touch corporate politicians. Nobody really cares what genitalia or race is in you, if you can say it that way, what race you are. They care about policy because we're in the midst of a global pandemic, right? There have been over 150,000 deaths, at least it's about to reach that soon. Already before the pandemic, tens of thousands of Americans have been losing their health care every year, right? Up to 20,000 have been dying every year just because they can't afford the proper health insurance. And that's before the COVID-19 pandemic. Also before the pandemic, 500,000 Americans were going bankrupt every year. So, now there's no excuse not to support Medicare for all, and before there definitely wasn't any excuse either. So it would have been common sense for him to not focus on identity, but rather on policy. But he would only do that. He would only do that if he actually understood what the American people wanted. So, he decided to go through the identity politics route. Because to him it matters, more what your what your gender and ethnicity are, right? Rather than policy. But nevertheless, I'm not too upset about who he chose. I guess I'm alright with Kamala Harris. Now, Mr. Fisher, how does this impact you in terms of who will you support? Do you feel more encouraged to support Joe Biden, less, or not impacted? I'm not really impacted. It doesn't really affect my choice. Because I knew he was going to be too rigid to pick a progressive, and he'd just pick like a milquetoast corporate, politician. But nevertheless, she is for Medicare for all, so it's not that much of a big deal. So, thank you for watching this video, guys. Quick summary: Joe Biden picks Kamala Harris as his vice president. You might as well say vice president because there's no way Donald Trump's going to win at this point. Just look at the polls. So yeah, he picks his running mate, Another less so, but still another corporate politician refuses to appeal to the left and goes with the most predictable option. So, see you guys later, and bye.